Hey folks, I'm back again. Hope you've had a good week. Okay, the Halloween Haunt Saga continues. Again, as always, completely unedited. Just me and my laptop. Anyway, where are we? 2001 is the next year, right? Yeah, okay. Again, I was in the same maze as 2000, same character. I believe this is the year they made some changes to the maze. They took away the overhead scare I had in my section, which sucked, but whatever. And they also got rid of the piece against the wall that I mentioned last time, that I would get up in the air and stand on the guardrail and the plastic molded piece to jump off of, because they added, I believe it was 13 ghosts that year, in between the Hannibal and Alien Room. And then at the end they added a room based on the movie Seven. Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt. I won't mention the other actor's name because, well, yeah. Reasons. I don't remember much interesting happening that year, as far as guests doing silly things like the first year. They also added a opening foyer, or foyer, however you want to say it, with the Crypt Keeper, because they changed it from Horrorwood Hotel to Horrorwood Fright Festival, Play on Festival, and it was the Crypt Keeper Presents. So we had a person in a Crypt Keeper costume with a bellhop uniform on, which was hilarious. Not really bellhop, more like the old school theater host. So kind of look like bellhop, but not really. You know, that little square rounded cap, red with the gold or silver lining around the bottom, no brim or anything. But everything else is pretty much the same. There were some things that happened that year to me, personally, that was more of an in thing between monsters. Usually, your first year, you get hazed. Not anymore, I don't think, but they used to do this. And usually it was something silly, like they would duct tape you to a chair or to a bench, depending where you're at. And where my maze was at, there's a train that goes around the park, and it's an old narrow gauge real train. Used to be run in Colorado, I believe, and they brought it here to the park. You can look it up later. It's an awesome train. Anyways, it's an authentic Wild West era train, you know, built back in the 1800s. Still runs daily. It doesn't run at night during the event, but the tracks happen to run along the back area of our maze, because there's a break area behind the building and the tracks kind of cut through the break area. If I'm remembering right. It's been a while since I've been over there, especially the backstage areas. Anywho, excuse me, I just got done doing some, we'll call it yard work. There's horses here where I live, so I have to help out every week, shoveling horse manure and whatnot. So, sorry, sidetracked, back to the story. Well, I managed to avoid that my first year. Even avoided getting a nickname. Because everyone gets a nickname that works there. Usually it's your first year. And one of the veterans has to mention it, and then it has to be ratified by 2 or 3 other veterans. And then that's your official name for eternity while working there. Well, my second year is when I got my nickname and got hazed. I got my nickname, Rookie, because I said something stupid to one of the veterans. And it was a complete joke. I think he took it the wrong way, and he got mad at me and said, "Effing Rookie." And then a couple of people, like, yeah, that's it, you're Rookie. And they, verified it, whatever. And I got stuck. It can be changed occasionally if people feel they should, you deserve a different name or whatever, but mine never changed, unfortunately. And so there's people to this day, 20 years later, that still call me Rookie when they see me, because that's how they met me or whatever. They know my real name. They just, yeah. And most of them don't even know how I got it. They just know that's what it is. But anyway, later on that year, or that month, maybe a couple days later, or a week later. Oh, with the duct tape thing, sorry. Sometimes they would take one of the benches from our break area, just a bench that goes to a picnic table, and they would duct tape you to that, laying out, and then put you on top of the railroad tracks for a little bit. It was good fun. It wasn't life-threatening or anything like that. Well, my friend got that done to him. He started the same year I did. We were in the same room. We're still buddies to this day. He's out of state now, but if you see this, you know what I'm talking about. How you doing? Anyways, if not, that was nothing. Anyway, they decided to take me to a regular chair. And unlike most of the mazes there, they're built up specifically for the haunt. So they're all facades, whatever. My maze was put in an actual building that's permanently there. It's a dance hall, technically. So they build up the maze walls inside the building, which was great. It was cool, especially on days where it rained. We had an actual roof, unlike some of the other mazes. I'll get to that in a couple weeks when I get to that video for that maze. But anyway, actually, I think it'll be next week. No, 2 weeks. So they duct taped me, and they put me outside one of the exit doors that faces, the main streets area of the maze, where all of the park, where the crowds walk by. And there was a monster, one of the monsters, I think he was on break, but he was on costume. He came out, stood next to me, and I wasn't in costume. I was on a lunch break or whatever, so I had changed out of costume just to take a breather. Like I said, it was just a sweatshirt, sweatpants, and a mask. So Obviously, I was wearing shorts and t-shirt underneath. So, at the time, I was in my regular street clothes. And most of the time we wore eye blackout makeup on our eyes, but with that mask we had, it was so big, I didn't really need it. I'd wear it occasionally, but most of the time I didn't with that mask because, like I said, it was just so long, you really couldn't see that much of my face anyway, even if I had it on or not. So I don't think I had any on that night. But anyways, the other talent was out there, and he was being funny, saying, "Hey folks, this is what happens when you hit a monster. Because obviously, if you hit one of us, we get security kicked out, etc., whatever." So they're having fun with it, kind of a warning to guests, "Hey, don't hit a monster. We'll hand you ourselves," kind of thing, which we didn't. But, anyway. And it was funny because some really cute girls I could probably never get on my own came and sat on my lap and took pictures with me, and which I know it was all part of the gang, and they were just thinking it was a fun thing, and whatever, I don't care. I had fun with it. Obviously my arms were taped down too, so I couldn't do anything. Well, then a little bit, I guess, I don't remember what it was. I think one of the officials for the park, we would call them yellow shirts because they would come through in yellow shirts. So we knew they were either security or park management staff, whatever. So one of those two came and said, "Hey, you can't, whatever, have me outside." I think that's how it worked. Again, 20 years ago, can't remember exactly every detail, but I think that was it. So they moved me inside. Still duct taped. They picked me up, put me in the Hannibal Lecter cage, still exactly how it was. And so I was sitting behind the bars. I started to fly on my monitor. Anyways. And we kept saying the same thing. Anyways, about, don't hit a monster, this will be your fate, kind of thing, etc. I went on for about 15-20 minutes. It was a slow night, so we weren't really in that big a hurry to get back to our positions. And we figured we let the breakers, have a little fun, stay in longer, and they didn't care. So, yeah, that happened. And then we had an in-joke between... There's always been a bit of we're a big dysfunctional family. I know people hate using the word family when it comes to jobs. There's a whole stigma about it. I know, I get it. But some jobs, they really are like a big family. You can't help it, especially jobs like this, where it's not about the money. It's not about it's about having fun. That's one thing I forgot to mention in the last video. We don't do it for the money. Yeah, it's a nice bonus, but it's therapy. I mean, honestly, every year I would do it, I would come out a calmer, happier person because I got to use it as an outlet for whatever pent up energy and anger or stressful things I had in my life going on that year built up in me. I would let it out there. Not in a mean way. I would run around, I could yell, I could scream, I could growl at people, snarl, whatever. Yeah, my go-to is this stupid snarl. That kind of thing. Hint, some women like it. I'll get to that later too. That's a story for another. About a friend of mine who, well, I'll get to that later. It's a couple years later, so this happened. But anyway, it's funny talking about certain years and then explaining these details to you guys brings back memories that, you know, I may have forgotten or just didn't think relevant at the time. But anyway, yeah, so get back in doing our thing. But like I said about the whole dysfunctional family thing, we had maze wars. At the time that year, I believe there was 12. There's usually between 10 and 13 mazes. A couple scare zones that are the street areas where the public walks. Like I said, the basis of the theme park, when you walk in, is a ghost town. Old Wild West. You have, when you go to the left, left. When you walk in the main gate, you go to the left. You had to go left because there's a thing in front of you. But so you go off to the left, kind of straight left, off to the side. It's an old West town. Some of the buildings were brought in, you know, from real places, and others were just our replicas. Like there's a replica of the real Birdcage Theater there. We got a wagon camp area, which is a stage, but it's got wagons on it. And then there's another area, this kind of wagon camp area too, next to it. But anyway, so you walk in and go to the ghost town, and that's where my maze was. It was towards the tail end of ghost town before you get over to there's like a Bigfoot Rapids area, kind of, or Bigfoot area, wilderness. And my maze was like the start of the wilderness area. Because the name of the building is Wilderness Dance Hall. Then you go back around, and there's a 1920s early American kind of themed area. It's almost like a slight carnival atmosphere, because that's where they have like your carnival games and stuff back there. So it's kind of like a midway area for that. Then you walk back up around the go back over to the other side. There's this Mexican area called Fiesta Village, and then there's Camp Snoopy, because, well, who doesn't love Snoopy? Well, the ghost town area was called, the streets zone was called Ghost Town. And in Ghost Town, there's, like I said, there's the wagon camp areas, there's a store that sells replica Wild West weapons. I'm not sure what I can say and can't say on YouTube. Guns. We'll just say guns. But they're replicas, they don't fire. There's some cap ones and like rubber band ones and that kind of thing, but then there's just like wall hanger replicas. And they also sell knives. Those are real, of course. Amongst other things. There's a nature center kind of thing, which is kind of cool. There's an old schoolhouse. Like I said, there's the replica of the Birdcage Theater. There's a blacksmith shop. A couple old train engines around. There's a train museum. Well, it's a Wild West museum, but there's a lot of train stuff in there. A couple good food places. But anyways, as you're going through for the haunt, it's foggy as hell. Oh, plus there's rides, but I'm not talking about rides. I'm talking about scaring people. So yeah, you walk through the ghost town, you get all these kind of cool, like, Old West themed monsters. And that's how it started, actually. It was just a couple monsters in the ghost town area. There was a old horror host back in the 60s and 70s named Seymour. He came and hosted a 2-night event where they showed a horror movie, a cheesy B-rated horror movie, probably from the 50s. Gave his commentary. He was the same as Vampira, Elvira, Svengoolie is the current popular one. That kind of thing. He did the first 2 years, and then he unfortunately passed away. He'd actually pretty much gotten out of his deathbed to come host that second year. He had so much fun doing the first year. But he had cancer, and he was in LA in a hospital. But he came out for a couple nights, out of his hospital bed, came down to Buena Park, and did his thing. Then he died. The next year they brought in Wolfman Jack, which was great. But then over the years they started adding the mazes and whatnot. So, anyways, one of my favorite mazes, besides my own, was one called the Underground. And there was a vampire maze that we used to make fun of because it was, at the time, called Gothic Graveyard. But it was in an area that was up an elevated part of the park. So it was kind of up in the trees. So we called it Gothic Treehouse as a joke. But anyway, I believe it was, so we weren't supposed to, but on our longer breaks, like lunches and stuff, some of us would get out of costume and just go walk through the mazes. We weren't supposed to, but no one really cared either. If we got caught, we got talking to, slap on the wrist, But I think it was both times that year, those 2 different times. One in the Underground, which was an industrial, dirty, dystopian kind of setup. Lots of industrial type music. 9 Inch Nails, probably Ministry, Rammstein, maybe. I can't remember all the bands that were, all of the songs in that maze that year, but we went through, and you remember those, I don't think they make them anymore, but they're in little glass bottles, little stink bombs, they're about that big, and you have to throw them down and break them, so, we got those. So we'd have a group of us in a line, and one of us in the line would have the stink bomb, and then the one person behind us would step on it, kind of thing. So there was, so it was hard to tell who did it, kind of thing. So we went and did that in the Underground maze and the Vampire maze. I believe one of my friends got caught doing it in the Underground maze and got duct taped to the cage where there were some go-go dancers, so he didn't mind too much. But and then we did the Vampire maze as well. And they got us back too. It wasn't just us doing it to everybody else. It was everybody did to each other. But yeah, we had some great times doing that kind of stupid stuff. And Yeah, but other than that, it was a pretty uneventful year guest-wise. But internally, we had our own kind of fun stuff we were doing. Yeah, alright, well, that's it for this week. I know it's kind of all over the place, I'm sorry. It's how my mind works. I hope you have a good week. Stay safe. Love you all. And again, do all the things. Push this, push that. All the bells and whistles, you know. Anywho, like I said, have a great week. Be safe. Again, love you all. Bye.